This is a very different kind of video for me because I'm showing my abstract work. I'm Chris of Wilson Wildlife Sculpture. Thanks for watching and following my channel. So you're not going to see any wildlife in this video unless you're looking very abstractly. This video is about creating fast sculptures that are about, and talk about my inspiration and process, okay? It's also talking about a very personal message for me and art as therapy. And we all face challenges in life, and my channel is to help bring the community of sculptors, wood carvers, anyone who likes three-dimensional art. It's primarily what I do. I do dabble in some painting. But I've been sculpting for 50 years, 30 of those full-time. And, I can create some fast sculptures in different materials. So I'm going to talk about wood art, even some stone, some metal art, fiber art, which is something new for me, and some other pieces I want to show as I'm talking about these processes. So art is very much a part of my life. It's who I am. I believe all art is a self-portrait. This is kind of a portrait. I call her Lucy, okay? It's very postmodern. It's made of hemp or jute, and I think it's a type of fiber from a coconut. I'm entering an art show with all these pieces, and entering art shows, I'm trying to do different mediums because I don't know what the judges likes, and also it's challenging and rewarding for me to work in different materials and different styles. Because most of my work, if you've seen my pages, each sculpture takes several months, if not even years, to complete. Like my cubby rice sculpture, my herons, the large pieces, very involved pieces, can take a very, very long time. So these pieces are more self-expressive, okay? They're telling stories. Really, this is found objects, I call it pipe dreams. And it's forged metal, it's silver soldered together, and I have them on a granite base. And I like the compositional movement. I spend a lot of time trying to get them to be expressive and they almost look like birds. It's kind of funny. Even this piece from the side view, I think it's one of these views here, I don't know if you can tell, it even kind of looks like a profile of a bird. So I can't help it. I make wildlife in my sleep, I guess. But that's not my intention. But there are, I do have themes in the work. Pipe dreams is kind of like empty dreams. And Lucy and other works are about me. Again, art is a self-portrait. I consider these pretty fast sculptures. This one took a little bit longer to make, but this is found wood. Okay, there's no better way to make a fast sculpture than finding the wood itself and letting nature sculpt the material itself through how the wood grows, through the wind, the water, the elements shaping the wood. So I actually polychromed or painted the wood. I'll turn this as well. This sculpture is kind of heavy, so I have a separate pedestal back here. And I carved a marble base. So this wasn't as fast carving the marble and then pinning it in. That took some time. Although I can carve stone pretty fast. I call it rising spirit, okay? No matter what happens in life, I always try to get back on my feet and don't get down, don't get depressed. And lately I've had some tough times. I'll talk a little bit about that in my work. And so nothing is gonna get me down. Even I left some scar marks on the marble. That represents the scarring I have on my hand from 10 years ago. I had a woodworking accident where a chainsaw disc went right through my wrist. And I was 2 millimeters from doing permanent damage in this hand. So I'm lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to be able to carve full time, to be able to do my art for a living. I'm very blessed, but I remind myself of that. And when I was at the ER, they thought I slit my wrist. And they didn't believe I cut it with a saw. It's like, because it was all mangled up and it looked, like I slit my wrist. So that was horrible, horrible dreams, but I'm still reminded of that, and I remind myself in this, through the darkness and through the light, and that it's a whole value scale. Okay, so there are actually scar marks in the marble itself. It's Georgia marble. I don't know what kind of tree this is, but it had really cool limbs. I ended up carving and sanding part of it, but it's all to make the concept a little more powerful. These works are called in and around. They're made to be viewed from all different sides. So I'm going to talk about other work, fast work. In fact, I once had a professor in grad school. I got a master's degree in fine arts at Georgia State University 25 years ago. That was before I was a professor of art. And he said, try to make 7 sculptures in 7 days. That was the assignment, actually, okay? So that blew me away because I was used to spending months on my work. And I got into that graduate program when it was very difficult to get into art school, graduate school programs, because I wanted to be a professor. And the professor told me later that he was intimidated by my skill level with my birds and my realism. But this video is not about that. I was very inspired by him because he worked very, very hard. He worked a lot of found materials, which I'm doing now. And I'm inspired by folk art, African art, 20th century modern art, as well as postmodern art. And even in my bird sculptures, here's the fast sculpture. I can create this pretty much in, easily a day. I can make several. But it's still slow. This is silver soldered metal. This is how I make my habitat for my works. And it's brass and copper with silver solder, and I braise it with a jeweler's torch. And this is a grapevine. So I'm not showing wildlife, but this is something more representational. I've decided not to paint it because, again, all these pieces are in for art show. In this category is metalsmithing. I'll be competing against jewelers and other artists and craftspeople. In fact, I'm entering this piece in fiber art with basket weaving and fiber art. And I've never done that kind of thing before. So I don't know. First, the works have to get juried to get in. And then they're judged if they get in the show. So you have to pay fees to get in the show. It keeps me on my toes. It's, again, a fine arts competition. And there's different categories. So let me show you one more piece. This is the pipe dreams I'll put down. And this, again, is, I'll describe Lucy, okay, because I use found materials in jute, or basically, what do you call that, that cloth? I'll think of it here, but you can put it in the comments. Sometimes I forget things. Burlap, there you go, burlap. And burlap was a material that Maria Abakanowicz used in the 20th century and made figures, very, very expressive figures and abstract. She was from Poland, dealt with the war there, several wars and the hardships in life. And I really wasn't going for that, but I was inspired by the postmodern use of her materials. And again, this was done in a day. And the other sculpture I did, besides Lucy, was Lenny. This is Lenny, and Lenny's had his better days. Lenny's angry, as my mom would call it, waking up with a black dog on your back. That's a very southern expression. A lot of people haven't heard of that, even in the South. But I made this, again, from that jute, the material burlap is made from. And also, as part of my therapy, not just through art, but exercise, I've been riding up a mountain with my mountain bike recently, and I noticed this branch, which is the main central axis of this sculpture, and it basically was run over. It was the middle of the road at the top of this mountain. Actually, it was going down the mountain a little bit, and cars would just be running over it. And it so much so that it was like I could see all the wood fibers all kind of coming apart. I don't know what kind of wood it is, but I thought it was interesting. And again, I was inspired by figurative work. In this case, Alberto Giacometti, who is a 20th century, very famous sculptor. You may have heard some of his work going for hundreds of millions of dollars. probably one of the most wealthiest artists. Of course, these, pretty much sold after he died. But they were considered surreal. So I made a metal armature for this. I did watch a YouTube video of a lady making sculptures out of wire and covering in burlap. I got a little inspired by that, but again, watching videos and looking at artists who are famous and in museums, it's only a starting point. I like to only not really look at their work, but just get inspired by it, come up, try to see what's been done before me, because art's been around since the dawn of humans, and just about everything's been done. So what can you do differently? You don't want to copy someone. That's not original. So all these works are original, and again, they're personal narratives. Lenny is angry. He's not had his best day. I try to make it expressive with the, just all the loose hanging fabric. And again, I just used some quick adhesives, in this case, hot glue for putting them together. And then I went back and used some more permanent adhesives, such as, E6000, that's one of them. It's been a while since I taught three-dimensional design. I did that for 7 years. And I really get a lot inspired by my students and materials that they would make. So again, these are sculptures I'm going to enter in that show. And I don't know if they're good in, but I'll give you an update if you stay tuned. And again, the show is about, they have a theme category. The theme is To the Rescue. I don't know if you can see this piece very well. It's very difficult to show pieces in shadow boxes because there's glass. Anything under glass reflects light. So this is called Hope. And the theme of the show, I'm going to show you another sculpture here as well, is called To the Rescue. Okay, To the Rescue is the theme of both of these pieces, not the other pieces I've shown, but I created these for different categories. And again, these were fast sculptures, not as fast as the fiber art or the metalsmithing, but I carved this actual feather, which is legally sourced, and it's in the search and rescue. That's the theme of it. So rather than the other pieces, like this one, which I got inspired by materials, this is represents a monument to firefighters. Okay, it's literally climbing to the rescue. And I found these samples of these corners for framing. There's framing corners. They've been gilded and polychrome, some gold leaf there. And I just started to assemble these and gluing them up with wood glue. And then I decided to make these ladders out of basswood. Not really carved, although this is a carved tool. And I even drew a fireman climbing up on this side. And that, because you had to, in this category, you actually had to show to the rescue. I really didn't want to make something literal. I like making stuff abstract for these competitions, because what I do for a living is very literal, my realism and wildlife and wood. So this is a good means of self-expression and things I can do a little bit faster for shows, and win prize money. I'll be honest with you, it helps to get your name out there and do different type of things like fine art shows and win awards. That's good for the resume. So again, I'll tell you about the carved feather art because I didn't think I'd return back to this medium. But after cutting my hand, slitting my wrist, it was a chainsaw disc and angle grinder that lost control. And I wasn't able to work with my hands and carve for several months. But I was able to use one hand and then cut and carve these feathers, and I've done a series of feather art pieces. They're kind of inspired by M.C. Escher. There's a positive and negative space there going on. The negative space forms the helicopter, and these figures, they're descending. Let me see if I can show you a little closer here. I think you're gonna have to wait for the end to see the close-ups here. So yeah, it's a little too dark. So figures are descending the feather from this monofilament. So I'll show you more of that later and what's it about. But again, I returned to that medium, and and this was good for me because I cut myself badly, and it was good for me to go back and basically never quit, never give up. And it's been a challenging time right now because art is therapy for me, and my personal life has been when you think you love someone, and after 4.5 years, the person throws you under your bus. You forgive the person, you go back, and the same thing happens. I've got to cut off that engagement and move on, pick up the pieces, don't get down, just move forward. And that's what these pieces are about. They're a means of self-expression. Art is good for the soul. Lots of things. Nature is good. Family, God, everything. So I try to have a balance in life, and these were really good for me. The last piece I'm going to show is something I just carved yesterday. Another fast sculpture. Going back to that concept, I had a professor tell me in grad school, always come up with the concept first, then come up with the materials. Okay, that's great. I did that with the feather art, okay, because I knew I wanted to do something to the rescue, and I thought of hope, the feather being symbolic, and the shadow box being black and white about life and death. So I really thought it was a strong concept, but it was an execution, it kind of evolved. I thought out in my head. It was a pretty fast piece after I thought the concept. But other concepts, like the climbing of the firefighters, this little monument, in this piece, I really just carved in less than an hour yesterday. And I'll tell you how. I didn't make a video, but it's been, a very hot summer, but we had some cool weather, so I decided to go outside and carve with power tools. And that's part of my therapy. I'm no longer afraid of the power tools. I use some safer tools. I don't use those chainsaw discs. But ironically, that company sponsored me. But I use carbide cutters and other tools that are much safer. And I demonstrate those in other videos, and you'll even find a video of me talking about this in other videos and about proper safety. So this concept, again, I just literally got this piece of cherry wood, thought it was interesting. I wanted a relief. This is for a wood carving competition, which I enter every year. And I want to use a relief sculpture, a high relief, okay? I'm going to talk about, as it developed, I want to talk about the rhythms of nature. And all I did was basically draw some flow lines with chalk on the wood, and then I just started with some carbide cutters. And with the carbide cutters, you can carve this in grain. It's easy. It looks like it took a long time to make, but I use some different sculptural processes in all my work. I look at the different planes of the work, so it's not so flat. I look at the positive, negative space, the repetition of shapes. And to me, it's a very formal matter of working, but in a very informal way. I'm not making a model or drawings. I'm just carving directly. And it's a very intuitive approach where the material itself tells me what to sculpt. I am looking at a log, a piece of stone, and the more I look at things, and I've got a big stockpile of wood, which I show in other videos, of stone. This is kiln-dried wood. Most of my wood, though, is found wood, which I find in the woods. And so I'm inspired by the materials that I find, and they help with my concepts. And eventually, I might carve a tree over here. I might do some tree roots, some more limbs and brush, rivers, valleys. I'm not sure yet, but I want to talk about the cycles of nature in this piece. I want to do a lot of undercutting. It's for a wood carving competition, so I know that it's very different than the fine art competition, where it's going to be judged more on the craftsmanship and less on the concept. However, I'm a sculptor, and I talk about the differences in another video between wood carving and sculpture. You can watch that in a lot of different videos, but I haven't shown a video quite like this in some time. I thought that would help. And I guess the lesson of this video is, art is good therapy, and to carve fast is very expressive, and it's good to get things out of your system. If you have these ideas, it's fun. But just be safe. Don't cut your hand like I did, and have fun. And thanks a lot for subscribing to my channel. I appreciate it. Let me give you some close-ups of my work. You can also follow my website, wilsonlifesculpture.com, and I have videos on there where I talk about my realistic sculptures. In fact, I just had some big news. A bluebird sculpture was, I have a flying bluebird. Yeah, I'll show you some close-ups of it here in a second. And it was chosen for an Australian rock band's new album. So this rock band contacted me. They loved this image. They didn't want to use AI, which is great. They wanted something handmade, and it's called Bird in the Sky. That's their album, and they're called The Silent Deeds. Again, an Australian rock band, other side of the earth. I appreciate their support. And in fact, I did this for free because I like to help other artists. And I do these videos on my YouTube channel for free because I like building the community and helping other people in general. It makes me feel better, and I hope I can give back, and you can learn from me. So thanks a lot for subscribing, and here's some video close-ups before I finish. Let me show you the feather here. Again, getting some light reflection there, even me. And last but not least, here is my realistic work. So I didn't tell you exactly the truth. I'm going to go ahead and show you a bluebird. My hands are a little bit sweaty. I don't like to handle the wood with oil on my hands. So it was actually a different bluebird was used for the cover of their, or was it this one? I can't remember. I've done several. I think it might be this one. But most of these are sold. I have this one left. And there is my last piece, the Spirit Rising. That's wood on marble and granite. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.